Hey, Carl, Jason here. Just want to confirm what Joe said at the beginning of the episode for your day 2 to 4 RPG a day. I won't be calling into people for RPG a day for the most part. There might be one or two exceptions to that, depending. But I kind of feel RPG a day is a personal thing where you're sharing your personal experiences and thoughts. And I want to respect that and not pollute it with my yabbering. So, my jibber jabber, as Mr. T would say. So yeah, I'm not going to do that. I'll call in other episodes and all that. And I appreciate RPG a day, and I appreciate the work you guys are putting in, and I'm appreciating listening to it. But I won't pollute it with my noise. So that said, thank you. I need the better rolling because obviously I didn't roll for crap last night in the GI Joe Transformers game. But I appreciate you running it. I appreciate you powering through technical difficulties, and I'm very happy that Amy let me play in her birthday game. So thank you to both of you.
Carl Rodriguez is the GMologist, GM extraordinaire, the GMologist.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the GMologist Presents. Actually, I almost said Nerds RPG Variety Cast. That was Jason at the top of the show giving me well wishes and mentioning, among other things, RPGaDay stuff and him liking what I've been throwing out. Yay! I don't mind if you clutter my podcast with your call-ins. I love your call-ins, Jason. And he also talked about the Transformers birthday game, Transformers G.I. Joe mashup that I ran for my wife Amy's birthday. And I will talk about that in another podcast. Maybe it'll come up as a something, or it might be a separate thing. It'll probably be a separate thing other than the RPG a day ones. But here, it's going to be RPG a day, days 5 through 7. I think 3 days is a good little number to throw out there. And day 5 says, what is the oldest RPG that you've played? Well, it's kind of a tie. I feel like it's kind of a tie because I think the oldest RPG that I played are both Traveler and the Moldvay Basic set. And I say, even though Traveler came out in 77, I think I really have only played the revised version. I don't think I've ever played legitimately from the 3 black books. I played the revised version, and I've done that a few times, kind of as a player and my own sort of thing. I've actually played more the second edition of the classic Traveler, which was like the Traveler Adventure and the Traveler Companion, something like that. The Traveler book and then the Traveler Adventure. So that was, really the revised version is 1981. And then my first RPG that I ever owned was actually the Moldvay Basic. And I don't have my original copy. It got destroyed along some move somewhere, but I was able to repurchase it. So that is the oldest game I played. It's a tie between Classic Traveler, the revised 1981 version, and the Moldvay Basic in 1981. I think some of you probably have gotten me beat on that, but hey, it's all good. If you know me, you probably know the answer to the next question, which is a day 6 prompt, which is my favorite game that I never get to play, or something like that. Exactly is my favorite game that I never get to play. And that goes to, man, I feel like it should be a tie too. Well, maybe I'll do my main one and then an honorable mention. The main one is Harn. I want to run Harn. I want to run a game in Harn World. I want to run a game. It doesn't matter if it's Harn proper on the island of Harn or somewhere in the world that is Harn in Northwest Lithia or Kythera, what it's called, the planet. And I do have a cool saga that I could run for Harn. It gives you like plot points, and you kind of, much like Savage Worlds, you kind of follow along, and could be adventures in between. But I'd love to just do like a sandbox type of Harn game, or a game on Harn using a rule set that the players and myself agree upon. So the runner up to that really is a game that they just released the 6th edition of, and that's Pendragon. I ran a lot of Pendragon back in the late 80s, early 90s, mostly early 90s, and it was a fun game. I really like the mechanic. I really enjoy kind of the generational aspect of it, though we never really got to the generation. I think I kind of screwed up by having way too many adventures in a year when you should have only a few adventures in a year, and then the winter phase, and keep the roll of years going, really. But I'd love to run Pendragon. That's another favorite game of mine that I have a lot of nostalgia for that I'd love to play. So, man, this is pretty easy and rolling off the tongue, right? And I don't have to go that much into detail about it. So Harn, I have run. Just to jump back a second, I have run Harn. I've run Harn with Harn Master. I've run Harn games in Harn World with Riddleless Steel, which worked really well. I think that was my longest running campaign. I have such great, memorable moments, and I had a kind of a neat idea, and maybe it worked really well because while I was using Harn, it was kind of my own thing. I just took little tidbits here and there from the plots, the various plots that were going on politically in the verse in various countries, and I think it worked really well. The highlight of some memorable moments is one of the a soldier. I think he was a soldier. I can't remember exactly what quote unquote profession he was, but he was a worshiper of Elvir who had soldiery background. Might have been related to a nobleman or a senator. I think he was the bastard son of a senator from Tharda, and he was escorting a group of pilgrims up to the pit of Elvir. And he had the pilgrimage caravan was ambushed by Gargoon, which are Harnick orcs, and he had this great moment where, he couldn't quite get to a Gargoon that was going to munch on a poor pilgrim, so he pulled out his broadsword and just threw it, and he rolled really well, despite some minuses the mean GM imposed upon him for throwing his unbalanced broadsword, and he tagged the Gargoon right in the back through the point coming out the chest, and killed the guy. It was very cool. It also cool scene with that player character was him trying to do what a priest of Elvir would do, was to walk the path of Elvir. I think he made it to the third circle, like if you imagine, like it starts on the like a spiral that moves in towards this sort of monolith, and he made it to the third circle of that spiral. So I think that's not bad for a layperson who was not a priest, quote unquote priest class in that game, in that verse. So I thought that was pretty neat. Another crazy scene in that same campaign was when the players, now having joined together, I kind of put various threads together, and they met I think they met at the pit of Elvir, and then they did other various adventures, because the guy who's leading the pilgrimage, that was kind of a front for him to do what his father wanted him to do, which was to spy into Orbal, actually to kind of track down or ally or try to bring back this. It was this fighting order of Agric, this female fighting order of Agric that had been banished, called the Crimson Dancer, and try to entice them to come back to Tharda to act as mercenaries for this guy's father's ambition. So it was a great scene. They were in southern Orbal at this guy's, at some Thronal, and someone in the court of this Thrawn convinced one of the players to assassinate the Lord so that guy could take over. And the player did it. He was promised, the cool thing about Riddle of Steel is it always was driven by character motivation, and this guy's motivation was to really expand the Leah Kavir to have more of a presence in Orbal, and he was promised to get his own little area. The Leah Kavir is the Thieves Guild in Harn, and his own little area to exploit. So this was a great in for him. So he put the pillow to the Lord and suffocated him in his sleep. And then he was given these sort of promises, and then all the player characters after this feast, they were either drugged or really they all drunk. No one really understood what was going on, which I thought was the best. And they all got into this a longboat with all the guy who hired the player to kill the Lord with all his men. And at the last minute, they realized something was up as they were kind of going out across the lake or onto the river or something, and a fight on the boat ensued, and that was a phenomenal fight. I think one player character was killed. His throat was slashed and he was pushed over over into the water. The other player characters managed to survive, and I don't know if we somehow. I think even though the guy was pushed over, I don't feel there's some sort of mechanic in the game and he survived his bleeding rolls or something like that, that they were able to fish him out and save him, even though like for the rest of the campaign that we played, he really couldn't talk because his larynx had been slashed. So that was great. And then, that was a fantastic scene, and I kind of remember it very vividly. So yeah, that's why I want to play Harn again, because of those kind of memorable scenes. And there's some cool role-playing scenes when they finally got to the Crimson Dancer all-female Agric fighting order. So Agric is a god of war and bloody fiery death, and these women were kind of vicious. So it was a kind of a neat bit of role-playing and interaction with one of my favorite factions in Harn, the Crimson Dancer. And I had a cool little plot that it was a cool little plot that I had that the players, I think they figured out that one of the daughters of like the head, or one of the daughters of either the head marshal of the Crimson Dancer or at least the lieutenant or something like that, was like the heiress of this house that had been wiped out in Orbal by the Avinians and the Crimson Dancer. So like was probably rescued as an orphan in one of these raids, showing some sort of strange empathy from a Crimson Dancer, crazy warrior fighter. And they found that out, which I thought was kind of neat. So I think it's pretty cool what was going to happen next, but we never really got to it. So yeah, that's my Harn, and I'm excited why I would want to play it. I've kind of rambled a bit, so I guess I got to get to number 7. So day 7, the prompt for day 7 is the smartest RPG you've ever played. Man, I was thinking about this a lot, and there are definitely some games that have cool mechanics. I'd say like a runner-up to this is maybe Millennium's End and tacitly Aces and Eights, which have this kind of neat like a target circle that you put on a silhouette, and it tells you where the hit might go. But Millennium's End is just kind of very simple. Other than that, it's a percentile dice system. And I think though, for me, just over the various incarnations, I think the smartest RPG, because of how it handles not just the combat, not just the character creation, but the survival aspect of the game in very elegant ways, is Twilight 2000. From the first edition to in the second edition, I really didn't play the third, though I have the book from 2013. But the fourth edition, it's just very elegant how they progressed and gotten to where you can do combat in a very slick way, do survival in a very slick way, and you keep track of food and water and ammunition and fuel and the like. And there's exploration. The way they do exploration for that game is really good. So I think it's a very smart game from the way you do like the life path creation system. They didn't call it that back in Twilight 2000 first, second edition, but it really is like a point by life path system. You make choices along the way to create your character, and they've really kept that. They have like a simple archetype system in fourth, but you could also do the life path, and I think it's a really smart way to do a game to get you into the mood and into the verse, and to really start with in Poland especially the failed battle of Kalitz, where you're left on your own. Your army, the 5th Army American Army Division with elements of the German 3rd, are just broken up by a surprising combined force of Polish and Soviet elements, and you just got to GTFO and figure your way around. And I think it's a very smart game that's done very well. And the modules they have, it's not like a set. There's like Black Madonna is probably like a set piece adventure, but all these modules it's more of like an encounter area with a lot of adventure hooks. And sure, there's one thread you can follow, but you don't have to. right? Like Pirates of the Vistula, for example, so sandboxy open. You just fly down the river and you can help people or stay away from people or not engage with people. And eventually things come to a head because there becomes something you can't pass without some sort of conflict or diplomacy. And I think it's just a really smart game and really well done. I'm hearkening back nostalgically to the original. And I think Twilight 2000, to me, is the smartest game that I've ever played. Well, that's days 5 through 7. This has been the Geomologist Presents. I hope you like what you've heard, and I do not mind the feedback. I know you are getting inundated this month, and maybe you just want to listen and be inspired, and I hope that's great if you are. So the intro and outro music are by TJ Drennan. The cover clip art is from my wife, Amy. And yeah, if you want to contact me, you can drop me an email at geomologist@gmail.com or a voice recorded message there or as a direct message through Discord. It's probably the easiest way. Then you can also have a SpeakPipe link here, and you can leave me a message about 90 seconds, or you can try the website for Spotify for podcasters, formerly Anchor. So thank you so much for listening, and, well, good night and good rolling. I was informed that there is an addendum to the oldest game I've played. Jason Connerly ran a session of Boot Hill for me, and I had Boot Hill back in the day, but I really didn't play it. And he ran it for me, and I finally got to play in it. So there you go. Boot Hill is the oldest game I've played, so ignore the thing about the Traveler and the Moldve, because Boot Hill is 1979.